Hello, this video will cover installing Beekeeper as well as getting a license for Beekeeper. As an introduction, Beekeeper is a server patching tool that utilizes the SCCM agent to apply patches. We allow you to get much better compliance, reducing your downtime. We automate our health checks and can even build you custom health checks beyond what you're doing now. We allow for the injection of these health checks during the patching cycle, pre-patching, post-patching, and at the very end to make sure the application is up and running. So we help you make sure that patching does not bring your applications down and can verify their health once you have completed patching. So to install the Beekeeper agent, we have to download the zip file and extract it, and you'll see here that I've done that, and we have our installers as well as our PDFs that are the manuals for Beekeeper and a scripts folder as well to help you. So to install Beekeeper, the first thing we do is open up a administrative command prompt and begin the installation by installing the API. So if I just hit tab, the first one in the list is the API. We hit enter. Following the prompts, we go to next, accept our user license, and then we hit next again. When you're installing or upgrading Beekeeper from a previous version, you'll want to have all of the options installed. Even if you're installing the database on a remote server, you can still do that installation all at the same time. So we want to make sure all our options are set to white with will be installed at the local hard drive. So we hit next. The first thing is we want to connect to our database. If the database is local, you can leave it as localhost or type in the name of the server. If it is an instance, you'll give the server/instance name and the appropriate Beekeeper name. You'll be wanting to run the install via an account that has access to that. Some of our users use the Beekeeper service account to install with, and you can do that as well. So at this point, we hit the validate button. It goes through and makes sure it connects to the Beekeeper server. If this is an existing installation, it will verify that that database already exists. Hit the next button, and we're asked to give our service account. This service account will need local administrator access on the machines that it will be managing, and access to the database for creation of tables and editing of data. It will also need to run as a service on the Beekeeper server itself. So we validate that we've entered our credentials in okay and that it has the appropriate access it needs to create the web service pool. So we hit our next here, and we are going to be creating a website, and it's the Beekeeper API. We can use the defaults here, hitting next. This is where it's going to install it. If you want to put it on a separate drive, you can. Next again, and then here is where we give the service account for the Beekeeper engine service, so Windows service. Most of the time, this will be the same user account. And again, we have to validate our credentials and that we have the log on as a service right. Again, we're validating that we can get to the appropriate servers. You can change that to the local machine name or leave it as localhost, up to you. And then we begin our installation. The big difference between a upgrade and a clean install is an upgrade will prompt you about using the database, whether you want to overwrite, add new fields, and so forth. Of course, you would want to do this on an upgrade, and it will prompt you for it during this cycle, as you can see here. If we were a clean installation, it would just say it would be running the SQL scripts to create the database. So at this point, we say yes. It runs the services and so forth and begins the installation. So now we have installed the API. We want to install the UI. So again, we go back to our command prompt, tab a few times to get where we get to the UI installer, let it run, Again, we accept the license. We want to install all this option. We want to give our service account again, and this is because we are creating a web tool for the UI. So the app pool will be running under that service account, and it'll also use that when it's connecting to the web APIs. The difference between the UI and the API, we have to make sure we can connect to the UI. So if you change that, you can change it again. We hit validate, and the URL successfully validated. We hit next again. You can leave this as default. Next again, and for the installation, and we go ahead and install. And our UI is now installed. We can open up the browser, go straight to our Beekeeper website, and it'll bring up our UI momentarily. So here we are at our UI. We can see that there are a few issues here. We are connecting to SCCM. We can see the server's offline because this was a previous install. And we have servers defined, and we would see that. And we also see I don't have any licenses. So to get our license, we go to the administration blade and go to licensing. The first thing we need to do is generate our ID file. This is a unique keyed file for this server. So we hit that button, and then it'll tell us to save it, and we can save that file and email it to support@greenhousedata.com, and we will get you a new license file, and that'll come back to you as a XML file. So as we see here, I've got the new XML file already. So we browse to our downloads, select our new file, import it, and we can see that because this is a previous installation, a number of servers have already been inputted, and this file will get us through June of this year. So now, after a few moments, the UI will correct itself. Beekeeper will go back to our green check, and we'll be all good there. One thing I do want to make sure you know is if you go to the About, you can see what version you're running. We just released version 5.1 February 15th, so we want to make sure you get the newest version possible. And that is how you install Beekeeper. If you wanted to lock down the Beekeeper website, what we suggest you do is going into the Beekeeper website, .NET Authorization Rules. What you can do is, first of all, by default, we put allow all users. What you want to do is you want to add your own allow rule for a specific group. In this case, I have a local admins group that I want to put in there. We would remove this allow for all users. And after that, we would add a deny rule below the group rule. So let me go ahead and expand this out so you can see it. So the order would be that we only let users in that group and deny all other users. If you're going to lock down the API as well, the same format, you want to make sure that your Beekeeper service account is in that group that you're allowing.